friends, welcome to All India Tutor. I am Sanjay. So this is really exciting to know that inside this complete video, we'll see a complete concept to create REST APIs using Laravel version 10 and passport authentication. Right now, if you have any hesitation to create RESTful web services using Laravel and passport, so I'm 100% sure after watching this complete video without any skip, you will get the complete confidence to create REST APIs using Laravel and passport authentication. We have one more request, please subscribe to this channel so that we can create such type of amazing quality contents for free for you. If I back to slide. So as I told you that this is a step-by-step course, so here we'll discuss from installation up to API development processes. So this is all about complete playlist plan. So first we'll see all about Laravel installation. After installation, we'll then connect with a database. After database connectivity, then we'll create our API controller class. And inside that controller class, we'll create our API needed methods. Methods as for registration API, login API, profile API, and logout API. So after creating API controller class, then we go and discuss all about passport authentication package and settings. Then we create all about application API routes. These routes are very important because by the help of these routes, we'll call all about these methods what we create inside our API controller class. So overall, inside this whole course, we'll see all about the concept of registration API, login API, profile API, and logout API. All about the API development processes we'll see from installation, all about the standard APIs. And all the settings, all the configurations of passport we'll discuss into a complete detailed way inside this video. So first we'll see all about the first step of this playlist, that is all about Laravel installation. So let's get started. Now to install Laravel, I will go to its official website laravel.com. Here I will click on documentation. It will redirect into the documentation of installation page, and here I will search for Composer because I will prefer Composer installation. Here we can see here we have a command here. I will copy, go to slide, open a new tab. If I paste it here, so this is all about the complete command to install Laravel using Composer. So if I see all about the command here, Composer space create hyphen project space Laravel / space example hyphen app. So this is all about we are trying to create a project using Composer of Laravel, and this is our setup name. So when we install using this command, it will create a setup with name called example hyphen app. So instead this dummy name, let's pass a realistic name, something called Laravel hyphen passport hyphen APIs. So I will copy the command here, go to project terminal. So I will paste it here, and if I press enter, it will create a setup with this name into this folder. Let's press enter. Now we can see that installation started. Successfully, we have installed our setup into our local system. So if I go into folder structure, so this is the setup what we have downloaded. So what we can do here, I will open this setup into my VS Code editor. In your case, you can choose your favorite editor. So what I will do, I will go right click, open with other application. I will select Visual Studio Code and I will click on select button. So successfully, I have opened our setup into my VS Code editor. So first thing first, I will try to execute this application into browser. So to start development server, I will go inside project terminal and let's go inside our setup. So here we have the setup name as Laravel passport APIs. So cd Laravel passport APIs. After going into project directory, if I type php artisan, press enter, it will open a command list. So to start development server, let's go up, and here inside this available command section, we'll see a command called serve. Look at single line description When we execute this command called serve, it start PHP development server. So how to start? Simple. PHP artisan serve, press enter. Now we can see that our development server started at localhost and 8000 port. So to access this application, simple way to open this URL into our browser. So I will go and copy link, go to browser, open a new tab, pasting it here, and now this is all about our landing page of Laravel version 10. So successfully we have installed our setup into our local system. Let's go to our checklist. So successfully the first point of this playlist now completed. In the next, we need to create a database and connect with the application. So first we need to create a database. So I will go inside PHP admin, click on databases. Here let's say Laravel underscore passport underscore APIs underscore YT. So I will copy the DB name, click on create button. So successfully database created. I will go inside project editor. So to connect with the database with this application, I will open .env file, which stands for environment variable files. I will go and search for DB connection and all these variables. So here inside these variables, as we are using localhost, so this IP is okay. Inside database name, this is what we had created. In my case, the username of phpMyAdmin is admin and password is admin at 123. Maybe in your case it will be different. Now successfully the created database now connected with this application. Let's close this file, go to browser, reload this page. So successfully now this application is connected with this database. Go to checklist. So here the second step of this playlist also completed. Now next we need to create an API controller class, and inside that controller class we need to create API needed methods. And one more thing before going further, if you really want to learn all about the API development process of Laravel and passport authentication, please stay with us without any escape, otherwise you will go into line of errors. Now in the next step, let's create an API controller class, and inside that API controller class we'll create all these methods. So as we know that inside Laravel there are several options to create controllers inside our controllers folder, like normal controller, resource controller. So here inside this course we'll create a normal controller so that we can create all about our custom methods. So to create a normal controller class, I will prefer PHP artisan command. So before creating controller, if I go to folder structure, so as we know that whenever we create any controller class, by default it goes inside app, http and controllers folder. So what we want to create an API controller class right here inside a subfolder called API, and inside that API subfolder we want our own API controller class. So what we can do here, let's go to project terminal. I will first close this development server, PHP artisan. If I press enter, scroll up, if we go inside this make section, so here we have a command called make controller. Look at here, create a new controller class. So we will use this make controller command to create a normal controller. So here PHP artisan make controller. As we know that we want a API subfolder inside controllers folder, so first pass the folder name. So we want this API inside this controllers folder, and inside that API subfolder we want API controller class. So this is our controller class name. Press enter. Now we can see that this controller class now created inside http controllers and API subfolder. Let's go to project editor. I will go inside app, http controllers API, and here we can see our API normal controller class. Now after getting this controller class, what we want to create our API needed methods for registration API, login API, profile API, logout API, all these methods right here inside this controller class. So first I will go and create for register API. So this API will hit using post request. So the method syntax will be public function and register. While calling this registration method, we want to pass all about user data, and inside user data we'll have something like name, email and password. So to get access all about our request body parameters, we'll use request object. So here inside this register method, I will pass request class and will use request object. Now let's create another method, and this is for login API. This method we hit also using post request type. So public function, and I will call it as login. While calling this login method, we'll pass email address and password. So to get access all about the request body parameters, here we want to pass request class and its object. Now next I will create another method, and that will be for profile API. This method we hit using get request type. So public function, let's call it as profile. And finally we need for Logout API, and this method we hit using get request type. So public function and logout. One more thing, so here we have 4 different methods inside this API controller class, where these 2 methods are open. It means that while calling these methods, we don't need any login or any authorization token value. But while calling this profile API method and logout API method, we want user must be logged in, and also we want a authorized token value. So these methods like profile and logout are protected methods. So successfully we have created API controller class and also created our API needed methods. So successfully from this playlist plan, this third step also completed. Next we'll see all about the concept of passport authentication installation inside our setup and its settings. So before starting all about the discussion and settings of passport, first thing first, what is passport authentication? So passport term is not the simplest card which we usually use for tours and travels. This is Auth2 authentication service. Inside Laravel, it's a composer package. By using composer, we'll install this package into our setup, and then we can use all about its services. So to get started all about installation, I will go to browser, go to this blogging website onlinewebtutorblog.com, and here inside this search bar, I will search for Laravel passport. Once we type, press enter, it will go and search and pick an article. Here we can see Laravel version 10 RESTful APIs with passport authentication. So I will go and click on that article, scroll down. So here we can see that how to set up passport authentication inside Laravel. So we need to follow each step to install and configure all about passport authentication right here inside our setup. So I will go inside this article. So step number 1, as I told you that it's a composer package. So we want to install first this package. It means Laravel/passport using composer inside our project setup. So in the first step, I will copy this composer command, go inside project terminal. Let's paste it here. And one more thing, before pressing enter, if I go and let's close this first, I will open composer.json, and inside this require object we can see that we don't have any Laravel/passport package, but once we install this from this composer command, it will automatically add a line of code right here inside this require object. So let's close that first and press enter. In a moment, as we can see, it started installation. Now successfully it has installed. If I go here and again I will open composer.json, now we can see that inside this require object here we have Laravel/passport. If I go into article, so first step successfully now completed, in the second step, we need to run php artisan migrate command. This is a well-known command inside Laravel. By the help of that, we execute migrations to create tables inside database. So before creating tables, if I go inside our project setup, first I will go inside database, migrations. So we can see that these are the default migrations what we got after Laravel installation. So let's execute php artisan migrate command to run all these migrations and create their respective database tables. So I will go inside project terminal. If I clear console and php artisan migrate, so before pressing enter, as we go and see that inside this migrations folder, we have 4 migrations. Press enter. So as we can see that here means apart from 4 migrations, also we have additional migration files automatically migrated and created tables inside our database. Now the question is, from where all these migrations comes from? So these are basically comes when we had installed all about Laravel passport package. So once we done all about the successful installation of Laravel passport authentication package inside our setup, so behind the scene automatically it has also created some migrations. By the help of that, we had migrated and created few tables inside our database like auth refresh tokens, personal access tokens, auth clients, auth codes, and access tokens. So successfully, now we have completed our step number 2 to migrate all the migrations and create respective tables inside database. Now let's go inside step number 3. So here we need to run a command of php artisan, that is php artisan passport install. Once we execute inside project terminal, it will create personal access auth tokens. So let's copy this command, go to project terminal, and also where we had installed Laravel passport authentication package, so automatically after installation it has provided a command called passport install. So let's go here. If I type php artisan passport install, remember this command is only available if and only if you had installed successful Laravel/passport package inside your setup. So let's press enter. Now we can see that successfully it has generated some keys like client ID 1, secret key, client ID 2, and secret key. So finally, now we have done all about step number 3. Let's go to step number 4. So here we need to open auth.php file from config folder, and inside that file we need to search guards, and inside guards we need to add this API array. So first I will go inside our project setup. Let's close this file, and inside this config folder I will search for auth.php, and here I will search for guards. Inside these guards we can see by default we have web. Now inside this array I will add one more key, that is API. So let's copy and put it here after this web. Let's go again to the documentation. Next we need to search for providers, and inside providers we need to confirm that this code is available or not. So I will go inside auth.php of config folder, search for providers, and we can see that here we have users, driver equal to eloquent, and model equals to app models user. This is user model class which is associated with users table. So it is okay inside providers, because as we know that for authentication to store our details of user, we are going to use users table and user class. So only we need to confirm inside this providers that this value is available inside providers. In your case, if suppose you are using some different tables for authentication like employees, authors, so simple, you need to define one more array here. Inside driver, eloquent is okay, and inside model you need to pass your own model which is associated with that table. So this is all about step number 4. Now next I will go inside step number 5 and I will open user.php. This is user model class by default we get after Laravel installation, and this model class is associated with users table. So inside this tab I need to open user.php from app models folder, and here inside this model class I need to update few lines of code. So first I need to go inside project editor. Let's close this file and I will go inside app models. Let's open user.php. So here we can see that use Laravel /sanctum /has API tokens. So as we know that by default Laravel 10 provides sanctum authentication, means it's by default behavior, but we are using passport authentication. So this time instead of this line I will go and remove, and I will add this has API tokens from this passport package. After that we need to go inside this user. This has API tokens already added here because in last time this has API tokens. Let's go and undo that. This has API tokens is coming from sanctum package, but here we want to use the token based concept from passport. So instead of importing from sanctum, what we can do here, use Laravel /passport /has API tokens. So once we add this line of code, go inside user model class and use this has API tokens. So successfully, this is all about the settings of user model class. Let's go to documentation. So once we add that line of code, use has API tokens. So this is all about only the settings of user model class. So once we complete the settings and configuration from step number 1 to step number 5, so after successful completion, we get a middleware called Auth API, and this middleware we can use inside those routes where we want to protect them. For example, in this case, we want protection of if we open HTTP controllers API controller class. So here inside these APIs we want to protect profile and logout. So while declaring these routes we protect using Auth API middleware. So successfully, this is all about the settings of passport authentication package inside our setup. So this is completed. Now in the next we need to create our API routes. So to create API routes, I will go inside project editor. Let's close these files. I will open two files here. First I will go inside routes folder. Let's open api.php first, and next I will go inside app HTTP controllers API and API controller class. This is our routes configuration file, and this is our main API controller class from where we call our API methods. So first inside this api.php I will import API controller class, and once we add this line of code, simple, first I will go and comment these lines, or simple uncomment, it is up to you. So I will go and comment these lines. First I will define routes for registration API and login API. So here we have two set of routes. First is all about open routes, and second all about protected routes. Inside open routes are those routes where we don't need any login or any token before accessing them. So here we have register method, login method, so we don't need any login or any token value. So these methods will be inside our open routes. But if we are talking about protected routes, so these routes like profile and logout, before calling these methods we want user must be logged in, and also we want a valid token value. So these are protected API methods. So here route I will call post method. So first will be register array API controller class, and from this controller class we'll call register method. So this is our first API route. Next I will define one more method inside open routes, that is for login array API controller class, and from API controller class we'll call login method. So successfully these are two open routes. Next we need to define all about protected routes, and these routes are those where we'll use the concept of middleware. As we know that we had installed Laravel password and successfully we had done all the settings with our application, so we have a middleware called Auth API. So before calling profile API method and logout API method, we need to use the concept of Auth API. So here, route, I will use group method. Let's define an array. Inside first parameter, I will pass a key called middleware, arrow operator, array, and here our middleware as Auth API. Inside this second parameter of group method, let's define a callback function, and inside this callback function we need to define our routes. So here, route, I will call get method, profile, I will go inside API controller class, and from that controller class we'll call profile method. Next we need to define all about for logout. So route, get method, logout, API controller class, and from that controller class we need to call logout method. So successfully this is all about API route settings. And one more thing, whenever we call any API route from here like register login, we need to add API as a prefix while calling any API from this file. For example, if we want to call register API, simple syntax will be project URL. After that we need to use API prefix and after register. It means that before calling any API route from this API.php, we need to add this API as a prefix before every route. So this is all about the syntax to call any route from this API.php. So if I go to our checklist, successfully, now we have completed this step number 5. Now finally, we'll see all about the core part of this complete video is all about API development processes. So first we'll discuss all about our first API of this course is all about Register API. By the help of Registration API, we need to create some users and save inside our database table. So before creating any user, if I go inside our database table, let's click on users table, go to structure. So before creating any user, what the data we want? So we want name, email and password. So these are the values we want inside our request. We get all the values from request and save inside this users table by the help of user model. Let's go inside our project editor. I will go inside this API controller, and for registration API, we need to work over this register method. So before starting all about the concept of register user, as we know that first we need to put all about data validation. So here I will use the concept of this request object to call validate method. So here data validation. So request I will call validate. Let's pass an array, and here we need to pass key value pairs, and key will be the column names or the body parameters name what we pass while calling this register method. So here we want name, it will be required. Next we want email, it is also required, and we want password, it is also required. So these are the basic parameters we want to create any user for users table. Along with all these fields, some additional rules for this email that whenever we pass any email value to create any user, the email must be a email pattern. So here email will be the second rule. Next we want that whenever we register any user with a specific email, so all the email of all the users should be unique. So here I will use one more rule, unique, colon and the table name. It means that the email address inside users table will be unique. In the password, we'll add one more rule and this will be confirmed. So successfully, this is all about our first step where we had implemented data validation. So after the concept of data validation, next we need to use the concept of user model to save our user inside our table. So first thing first, we need to import user model here. So use user, and it is coming from app and models. I will go here. Let's add a single line comment, that is create user. So I will call user model and call create method. Inside this create method, I will pass an array here. We need to pass key value pairs. Here key will be the column names of users table. So name, email and password. So for name value, we want to read the name value from request here. So request object and email. Not email, this is name here. Next for email, request, email, and for password, it is request and password. And one more thing before saving this password, as we know that this is a plain text value, so we want to encrypt before creating any user with this plain text value. So what we can do here to convert a normal text into encrypted value, I will go here and import use eliminate support facades, and we'll call hash facade. Once we call this hash facade, simple, just copy, go here and I will call hash, call make method, and inside this make method pass this simple text value. Now this text value will be converted into a hashed value by the help of this hash facade and make method. And finally, after creating user, we need to return a JSON response. So return response. I will call JSON method. Let's pass an array status equals to 1. Message, let's say user created successfully. Instead of 1, let's say true here. So successfully, this is all about the complete logic and the code implementation of register API method. Let's do a quick unit testing. I will go inside Postman. Let's start development server. PHP artisan serve. Press enter. Started. I will copy this project URL. Go inside Postman. Put it here. Let's select post here, because we'll hit register API method using post request type. So post here, go to headers, and I will first pass accept application JSON. Once we pass this header, let's go inside body, select form data. We need to pass the key called name, email, and password. So after putting all these columns, because we have a data validation here, so we want to pass all these values. Let's pass our first user, and I will pass our password from 1 to 6. And before passing any data, let's go and first complete our API URL. So API is a prefix and register. So I will go and click on the submit button without passing any data. Let's see what happens. Now we can see that here we have bunch of errors, and this is because we have implemented data validation. Now let's pass this name, email and password. I will first pass its email value without having any email pattern. Let's click on send button. Now you can see that email field must be a valid email address. So I will go and let's pass a valid email pattern. I will click on send button. Again we have an error, that is the password field confirmation does not match. And this is because as we have added a rule in front of this password with the name called confirmed. So once we have added this confirmed here, it means we need to add additional field here inside this request with key called password underscore confirmation, and inside this key we need to pass the exact value what we have passed with this password key. So here it is 1 to 6. If suppose we have passed 1 to 7, these two fields didn't match, click on send button. Again we have the same error. Let's go and remove this 7 here. This time we are hitting this registration API with all the valid values. Click on send button. Now we can see user created successfully. Let's go inside our database. Go and click on browse button. Now we can see that name is okay, email value is okay, and also password is a hashed value. This is what we have used the concept of hash make method. So successfully, now we have created our first API, that is register. Now let's see the next concept from this playlist plan, that is all about for login API. So to work with the login API, let's go inside project editor. I will go inside API controller class, and this time we'll work on this login API method. So here first we'll implement all about data validation. Inside login API, we need email address and password. So here request, I will call validate method. Let's pass an array here. We want inside our request the keys will be email and password. Let's add validation rule, it is required, and also the email value should have a valid email pattern, and this password is required. After data validation, let's say that we have passed an email value and password. Now this time we'll use the concept of auth facade. From auth facade we'll call attempt method, and inside attempt method we need to pass email address and password. So automatically behind the scene it will detect and match our credentials with the database user. So first I will go and let's import auth facade. So use eliminate support facades, and I will call auth facade. I will just copy, go here inside this login method. So here we are checking user login. So auth I will call attempt method, and inside this attempt method we need to pass an array here, and inside this array we need to pass the email value and password. So email and password. Inside this email we can get from request here, so email and password is also from request. So once user will exist with these details, this is going to return the true response, otherwise false will be returned. So in case of true value, let's go and wrap inside this if else block. So inside true response we'll go inside this if block, it means user exists. Otherwise I will go inside this else block. Let's return response JSON. Let's pass an array status equals to false, message equals to, let's say, invalid login details. Next I will go inside this if block, it means user exists. So here I will read the user value. So user equals to auth, and user method means auth, scope resolution operator, and user method. So by using this user method from this auth facade, here it will return a user object, and inside that user object we have all the user values. Now next I will generate a token by using this user object. So here this is all about authorized token value, what we will use inside for the next APIs like profile API and logout API. So token equals to user, it's a user object what we are getting from this auth user. I will call a method create token, and inside this method we need to pass our token name. So let's call it as my token. Now this method will return a bunch of tokens into different formats. So from those formats we want to access only access token value. So finally, by the help of this line, we are getting a access token value, and this is the concept what we had used because inside our user model we have has API tokens what we had implemented of Laravel passport. Let's open first all about user model class. So here we have added Laravel password. Also we are using has API tokens, that's why we called create token method. Now next here, after getting this token value, let's return response JSON method status equals to true, message equals to user logged in successfully, and finally the most important parameter of response, that is all about token. And here we have the token variable. If suppose you have not done these settings in a correct way, so in that case you will get some errors while calling this create token method. Now successfully everything has been now completed for this login API method. Now let's do a quick unit testing. I will go inside Postman. Let's copy this API URL of register, open a new tab, pasting it here. First I will select this post request type. Instead of calling register, I will call login, go to headers, let's say accept, application JSON, go inside body, select form data, we need to pass email address and password. So these are the two values what we are passing inside request of this login API. So here for the time being, let's copy this valid email, pass it here. If I pass, let's say a invalid password, click on send button, we can see invalid login details. But when we pass a valid value of password from 1 to 6, everything is okay. Click on send button. Now we can see that status equals to true, user logged in successfully, and inside this token, this is the most important value. This is the authorization token value of passport, and this token means the complete token value we need to use while calling profile API and logout API. So successfully, this is all about the concept of this login API. Now finally, it is also done. Now in the next step, let's see all about this profile API. So profile API simple means that when we call our profile API, it means when we pass the authorization token value inside header, first we need to get the token value, and from token value we need to retrieve the current logged in profile data. Let's start all about the concept of this profile method. So before working over this profile method, if I go inside api.php, so as we had discussed that these are the two routes called profile and logout are protected API routes. It means before accessing these methods, we need to actually go or bypass from this auth API middleware. In case if we don't pass any token value, means valid token value, we are not able to call these methods. But in case if inside our request we have a valid token value, we are authorized to call these methods. So in that case, inside these methods we have auth facade available. So by calling auth facade and user method, automatically we can get the user profile information. So here user equals to auth facade, and I will call user method. So here return response JSON method, and let's say status equals to true, message equals to profile information, and let's pass data equals to user. So successfully, when we pass a valid token value while calling this profile method, automatically when we hit with the authorized request to this profile method, here inside that we have a auth facade, and whenever we call user method, automatically it returns all about user profile information. So let's save these changes. I will go inside Postman, Copy this API URL, open a new tab, pasting it here. Let's call it as API/profile. And I will select here get request type, go to headers, accept, application JSON, and also this time inside headers we need to pass one more header with our valid token value. So I will copy the whole token. This is quite long, so I will copy the whole token, go here and add authorization token value. It's a header, and here it's a bearer space and the token value. Let's say I'm not going to pass this authorization inside header. Now let's click on send button. As we can see, unauthenticated, because this request, the API call is not able to bypass this middleware. So it returns from this stage and we are getting unauthenticated. Let's pass this authorization, and I will go and do some mistake here. Let's remove this E. Click on send button. Again, this time this is an invalid token, so this is not able to bypass Auth API middleware and we are getting unauthenticated. Let's go and pass the correct value. This time we have the valid values. Hitting this profile API method, click on send button. Now we can see status equals to true, message equals to profile information, and inside this data object we have all about the user profile information. So successfully, this is the concept of profile API method, and it is also completed. Now finally, we'll discuss all about the last API of this course, and that is all about Logout API. The concept of Logout API is simple. Whenever we hit Logout API, it means it destroys all the sessions of logged in user and it destroys all the tokens, and after logout, whenever we try to use that token value inside any authorized API, then automatically it will be unauthenticated. So let's go and see all about the actions first. So inside this logout, and one more thing, that as you know that this logout method is also protected within this Auth API middleware. It means whenever if we are able to hit this logout method, so here we have auth facade available. So either inside Laravel we can use auth facade or auth helper function to read all about current logged in user session. So this time inside this logout method we'll use the concept of auth helper function. What I mean, in the last API, that is auth user, if I copy, put it here, so this is the same concept. If I call auth and I will call user method, these two lines will go and return the same value. Either we can use auth facade or auth helper function. So this time inside this logout API method we need to use auth helper function, user method, and I will call token and I will call revoke method. By the help of this line of code, simply from auth we are reading the current user, and from current user we are fetching the token value, and simply by calling this revoke method we are destroying that. And once we destroy the current logged in session tokens value, then finally after logout we are not able to use inside any of the protected APIs. So here let's return response JSON status equals to true, message equals to user logged out. Save these changes, go to Postman, copy this API URL, open a new tab, select get here, let's call it as logout. I will go inside headers, let's say accept, application JSON, and let's copy our token value what we have generated by the help of login API. So I will copy, go here, after this accept, let's say authorization, bearer space and the token value. If we don't pass this token value while calling this logout, as we know that this is protected API, so hopefully we'll see all about unauthenticated. Now let's pass authorization token value, click on send button. So whenever we press this send button, automatically it destroys the current token value of current logged in user. So let's go and click on send button, user logged out. Now the same token value we had used inside this profile API, and as we know that this token now destroys. Click on send button, we can see unauthenticated. So this is how magical concept of Logout API. So finally, the last API concept also we have completed of this course. And one more thing before closing this video, this is quite interesting that as we know that we have inside Laravel auth facade and auth helper function. So either we can use auth facade to call attempt method like in this way. Also you can use auth helper function and attempt method. This is the alternative way to use auth facade and auth helper function. If you use this auth attempt or auth helper function, the results will be same. So here inside this auth attempt, also you can use auth helper function and attempt method, and also here auth helper function and user method. So like every stage what we had done with auth facade, you can simply replace with auth helper function. So finally guys, I hope that you followed this video from ground level, like from Laravel installation up to API development processes. So if you follow this video from step number 1 to step number 9 without an skip, so I hope, I am 100% sure now you will have some confidence to create Laravel 10 APIs using passport authentication. So finally, this is a step-by-step course where we have seen all about the detailed concept from installation up to passport authentication installation and its settings to create API routes and API settings and API processes with standards inside Laravel. So successfully, now we have completed this complete course of Laravel version 10 REST API using passport authentication, and I hope this video is too much informative for you. So please like, comment to this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and let's meet into our next magical concept of video. So for this video session guys, thank you for watching and have a great day.